Chapter 1. Seoul was buzzing with the sound of cars, chatter, and the rhythmic footfalls of people hurrying to their destinations. But in the midst of this busy city, there was a quiet boy named Seo-jun. He was an ordinary 17-year-old student at Han River High School, the kind of boy that easily blended into the background, barely noticeable in the crowd. Seo-jun had always been shy, never drawing attention to himself. He lived in the shadows of the popular kids, spending most of his time with his nose in books. But something was about to change his life forever. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned a brilliant shade of amber, Seo-jun was late to school. Running through the crowded halls, he crashed straight into someone, sending their books flying. Apologizing profusely, he looked up and froze. His heart skipped a beat. It was Eun-ha, the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. Eun-ha was different from the other girls at Han River High. She wasn't just known for her looks. She had a kind heart, a warm smile, and she treated everyone, popular or not, with the same gentle kindness. Seo-jun felt his heart race, but he couldn't bring himself to speak another word. He quickly gathered her books, handed them to her, and darted off, his face flushed with embarrassment. Little did Seo-jun know, Eun-ha had noticed him too. There was something about his awkward, shy demeanor that intrigued her. She had seen him before in the library, always studying quietly by himself, and wondered what he was really like. And so, a spark was lit in the quietest corners of Han River High School. Chapter 2. Weeks passed, and Seo-jun found himself constantly thinking about Eun-ha. His heart fluttered every time he saw her in the hallways, but he couldn't muster the courage to talk to her. She was always surrounded by friends, and Seo-jun feared he was too ordinary for someone like her. He tried to focus on his studies, but his mind kept drifting back to that day. He would replay the moment they met in his head, wondering what it would be like to talk to her, to hear her laugh. Every now and then, he would catch her looking his way, but he convinced himself it was just his imagination. Eun-ha, on the other hand, had noticed Seo-jun's glances. She found it endearing how he always seemed so lost in thought, and she admired his dedication to his studies. She wanted to get to know him, but she wasn't sure how. Her friends often teased her about her popularity, but she didn't care about those things. She wanted something real, something different from the superficial relationships she saw around her. One afternoon, as Seo-jun sat alone in the library, immersed in a thick history book, Eun-ha walked in. Her heart raced as she approached his table. Taking a deep breath, she smiled and said, "Is this seat taken?" Seo-jun looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. He couldn't believe it. Eun-ha was standing right in front of him, and she wanted to sit with him. His mind went blank for a moment before he stammered, "And no, go ahead." As Eun-ha sat down, she pulled out her notebook, pretending to study. But really, she was waiting for him to say something, anything. Seo-jun was too nervous to speak, so they sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. But in that silence, something was growing between them, a quiet, invisible connection that neither of them fully understood yet. Chapter 3. A week later, during lunch, Seo-jun was sitting under his favorite cherry blossom tree, a place he often went to avoid the noise of the cafeteria. The soft petals fell around him as he ate his simple meal, lost in thought. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him. "Mind if I join you?" He turned to see Eun-ha standing there with a tray of food. His heart skipped a beat. He nodded, not trusting his voice to work properly. They sat in silence for a while, but this time, it didn't feel awkward. It felt comfortable. After a few minutes, Eun-ha broke the silence. "I like it here," she said, looking up at the tree. "It's peaceful. I've seen you here before." Seo-jun was shocked. She had noticed him? His heart raced as he tried to think of something to say, but all that came out was, "Yeah, it's quiet." Eun-ha smiled, sensing his nervousness. "You don't talk much, do you?" Seo-jun looked down at his lunch, embarrassed. "I guess I'm just not very good at talking to people." "That's okay," Eun-ha said gently. "I think it's nice. You don't have to talk a lot to be interesting." For the first time in what felt like forever, Seo-jun felt a little more relaxed around her. They spent the rest of lunch in quiet conversation, talking about their favorite books, their dreams, and even their fears. Seo Jun realized that Eun-ha wasn't just beautiful. She was kind, thoughtful, and deep in ways he hadn't expected. And Eun-ha discovered that Seo Jun was more than just the shy boy in the background. He had a kind heart, and his quietness held a depth that intrigued her. As the school bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, Eun-ha stood up and smiled at Seo Jun. "See you tomorrow?" Seo Jun nodded, unable to believe that this was actually happening. Eun-ha liked spending time with him. He watched her walk away, feeling something warm and new growing in his chest. For the first time, Seo Jun began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't invisible to her after all. Chapter 4. Weeks turned into months, and Seo Jun and Eun-ha became closer. They spent their lunch breaks under the cherry blossom tree, shared stories about their lives, and even studied together in the library. Eun-ha's friends noticed her spending more time with Seo Jun, but she didn't care about their teasing. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had found someone who truly understood her. But as the end of the school year approached, Seo Jun began to panic. His feelings for Eun-ha had grown stronger, and he couldn't keep them bottled up any longer. He had to tell her how he felt. But how? He was terrified of rejection. What if she didn't feel the same way? After agonizing over it for days, Seo Jun came up with a plan. He would confess to her in the most romantic way he could think of during the school's annual spring festival. Every year, Han River High held a festival filled with games, food stalls, and performances. It was the perfect opportunity. Seo Jun spent days preparing. He wrote a heartfelt letter, expressing everything he had been feeling since the day they met. He even practiced what he would say when he gave it to her. He was determined to make this moment special. Chapter 5. The day of the spring festival finally arrived, and the school grounds were buzzing with excitement. Seo Jun's heart was pounding in his chest as he scanned the crowd for Eun-ha. He found her near one of the game stalls, laughing with her friends. Summoning all his courage, Seo Jun approached her. "Eun-ha," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Eun-ha looked surprised but smiled warmly. "Of course." Seo Jun led her to a quieter part of the school garden, away from the noise of the festival. His hands were shaking as he pulled out the letter from his pocket. "Eun-ha," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I've liked you for a long time. Since the day we met, actually. I've never felt this way about anyone before, and I needed to tell you." He handed her the letter, his heart racing as he waited for her response. Eun-ha stared at the letter, her eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, there was silence. But then, before she could say anything, a loud crash came from behind them. A group of students had knocked over a stack of chairs, causing a huge commotion. Eun-ha's friends rushed over to see what had happened, calling her to come join them. "I'll be right back," she said, looking flustered. "Let me just see what's going on." Seo Jun watched her go, his heart sinking. This wasn't how he had imagined his confession. He stood there, clutching the letter, wondering if he had made a mistake. Chapter 6. The next few days were awkward. Seo Jun avoided Eun-ha, afraid that his confession had ruined everything. He couldn't bear the thought of facing her, not knowing what she was thinking. Eun-ha, on the other hand, was confused. She had been about to respond to Seo Jun's confession, but the festival chaos had interrupted them. She didn't know what to do. Every time she tried to approach him, he seemed to slip away, avoiding her at all costs. Rumors began to spread around the school. Some students claimed that Eun-ha had rejected Seo Jun, while others said that Seo Jun had been too shy to follow through with his confession. The misunderstandings grew, and soon, it felt like there was a wall between them. Eun-ha couldn't stand it anymore. She needed to talk to Seo Jun to clear the air. But every time she tried, something got in the way, whether it was their busy schedules, their friends, or Seo Jun's own reluctance. Both of them were hurting, but neither knew how to fix it. Chapter 7. One rainy afternoon, after weeks of tension, Seo Jun found himself standing outside the library, drenched from head to toe. He had stayed late to finish a group project, and now the rain had caught him off guard. As he stood there, waiting for the rain to let up, he saw Eun-ha walking towards him, an umbrella in hand. His heart skipped a beat. "Seo Jun," she called out, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said, her eyes filled with determination. Seo Jun nodded, though his heart was pounding in his chest. They stood under the umbrella together, the rain pouring down around them. "I'm sorry," Eun-ha said softly. "I didn't mean to leave you hanging like that. I wanted to talk to you after the festival, but things just kept getting in the way. I never got the chance to tell you." Seo Jun looked at her, his heart aching. "Tell me what?" Eun-ha took a deep breath. "That I feel the same way. I've liked you for a long time too. I just didn't know how to tell you." Seo Jun's eyes widened in surprise. He had been so convinced that she didn't feel the same, that he had never even considered the possibility that she might. "I'm sorry for avoiding you," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I thought I had ruined everything." Eun-ha smiled, her eyes softening. "You didn't ruin anything, Seo Jun. We just got a little lost along the way." As they stood there, the rain slowly letting up, Seo Jun felt a wave of relief wash over him. The misunderstandings, the awkwardness, it all melted away in that moment. All that was left was the truth, their feelings for each other. Chapter 8. From that day on, Seo Jun and Eun-ha were inseparable. They spent their days laughing, studying, and growing even closer. Their relationship blossomed into something beautiful, built on trust, understanding, and the quiet connection they had always shared. As they graduated from Han River High, they both decided to attend the same university, excited for the future that lay ahead. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, and they supported each other through every challenge life threw their way. Chapter 9. Years passed, and Seo Jun and Eun-ha's relationship only deepened. After finishing university, Seo Jun landed a job as a writer, while Eun-ha pursued her dream of becoming a teacher. They had built a life together, full of love, laughter, and shared memories. One warm summer evening, as they walked along the Han River, the same river that had been the backdrop of their high school days, Seo Jun suddenly stopped. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. "Eun-ha," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you." Eun-ha turned to him, her heart pounding in her chest. Seo Jun got down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes full of love. Eun-ha's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, unable to speak. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Seo Jun slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced, the world around them fading away. It was just the two of them, standing by the river, their hearts intertwined forever. Chapter 10. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, held under the cherry blossom trees where they had shared so many of their early moments together. Surrounded by their closest friends and family, Seo Jun and Eun-ha exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other for the rest of their lives. As they walked down the aisle, hand in hand, the cherry blossoms fell around them like a shower of blessings. Their journey had been full of twists and turns, misunderstandings and heartache, but in the end, they had found their way back to each other. And as they stood there, looking out at the people they loved, Seo Jun and Eun-ha knew that this was just the beginning of their forever.